Yo, what's up, awesome subscribers? Welcome back to the channel, where we unravel the epic tales of our past. If you're new, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring the bell to join the journey. Today, we're kicking off a thrilling new series, Voyages of the Ancient Seas, humanity's first ocean journeys. We'll explore how our ancestors tamed the waters, from humble canoes to bold Pacific crossings. Let's dive into Chapter 1 and discover the dawn of seafaring. Around 12,000 years ago, as the Ice Age began to fade, the world transformed. Glaciers retreated, seas swelled, and vibrant coastlines, rivers, and lakes burst with life. In the Mesolithic era, a pivotal time between the Paleolithic and Neolithic, humans looked beyond the land to the water's edge. Here, they built the first boat-screwed but groundbreaking vessels that opened new horizons. This chapter uncovers those early crafts and their impact on survival. Imagine a lush riverbank in what's now northern Europe. Mesolithic communities, wielding stone axes, felled towering trees and carved them into dugout canoes. One such boat, found in a bog at Pes in the Netherlands, and dated to around 8000 BCE, stretched nearly 10 feet long, smoothed with stone scrapers and sealed with animal fat. These canoes were sturdy enough for calm rivers and lakes. Along coastlines, others lashed together reeds or logs to create rafts, bound with tough plant fibers, simple but effective for short trips. Archaeological finds tell the story. At Starkar in England, fish bones and bone harpoons reveal a deep reliance on aquatic resources. Farther afield, coastal sites in Australia, occupied as early as 40,000 years ago, suggest early mariners used rafts to cross island gaps. These pioneers weren't just fishing, they were mastering tides, winds, and currents, passing this knowledge through generations. These boats were game changers. They unlocked new hunting grounds, like offshore fish schools or seal colonies, and let small groups travel farther to trade shells or flints with distant neighbors. A family in a dugout could paddle to a fish-rich lake, while coastal rafts linked communities along shores. In these humble vessels, we see the spark of exploration that would one day carry humans across vast oceans. As the Mesolithic world warmed around 10,000 years ago, the retreating Ice Age unveiled a planet rich with possibilities. Rising seas flooded lowlands, creating jagged coastlines and island chains that beckoned early humans to explore. No longer content with rivers and lakes, these adventurous souls pushed their simple boats, dugout canoes, and reed rafts into the open waters of coasts and straits. This chapter delves into the daring first steps of coastal exploration, the challenges of navigating unpredictable seas, and the profound impact of these journeys on human survival and connection. In what is now northern Europe, Mesolithic communities honed their boat-building skills. Dugout canoes, carved from oak or pine with flint tools, grew more sophisticated. Some, like those found in Denmark's bogs, were up to 12 meters long, capable of carrying entire families or hunting parties. These boats were paddled along coasts, where calm bays offered safety and treacherous currents tested courage. In Southeast Asia, evidence from sites like Naya Cave in Borneo, dated to around 40,000 years ago, suggests early mariners used rafts to hop between islands, reaching as far as Australia. These weren't random wanderings, they were deliberate voyages driven by curiosity and necessity. The sea was both a bounty and a beast. Coastal waters teemed with fish, seals, and shellfish, vital for growing populations. At sites like Starkar in England, archaeologists uncovered harpoons, nets, and fish traps, showing how communities thrived on marine resources. But the sea demanded respect. Sudden storms could capsize a canoe, and navigating rocky shores required keen observation of tides and winds. Early mariners learned to read the environment, watching cloud patterns, bird migrations, and wave rhythms to guide their paths. These skills, passed down through oral traditions, were as crucial as the boats themselves. These coastal journeys sparked connections. Groups traded goods, flint tools from inland forests for seashells, or salt from coastal flats. In the Mediterranean, obsidian from volcanic islands like melasse, was traded across hundreds of miles, found in sites as far as mainland Greece. These exchanges weren't just about goods, they shared stories, technologies, and even mates, weaving networks of kinship. A coastal camp in what's now Scandinavia might host visitors from distant shores, their rafts laden with amber beads or dried fish, strengthening bonds through feasts and rituals. The risks were high, but so were the rewards. Coastal exploration opened new territories, from the fertile shores of the Baltic to the tropical islands of Southeast Asia. It fostered resilience and adaptability, traits that defined early humans. A family paddling along a foggy coast, spotting a new bay rich with oysters, wasn't just surviving, they were writing the first chapters of humanity's maritime legacy. These voyages laid the foundation for the epic ocean crossings to come, proving that even in the Mesolithic, the horizon was never the limit. By around 9000 BCE, Mesolithic humans were no longer just dipping their toes into the water, they were becoming true coastal navigators. The warming world of the post-Ice Age era reshaped the planet, with rising seas carving out intricate coastlines, bays, and archipelagos. These waters, teeming with life, but fraught with danger, challenged early mariners to master the art of navigation. This chapter explores how these pioneers developed the skills, tools, and instincts to conquer coastal seas, transforming their simple boats into vessels of exploration and survival. The boats of this era were evolving. In northern Europe, dugout canoes grew more refined, with some found in bogs like those in Denmark showing signs of careful craftsmanship, smoothed hulls, reinforced sides, and even remnants of paddles carved from ashwood. These vessels, often 10 to 15 meters long, could carry heavy loads of fish, tools, or even small groups across choppy waters. In warmer regions like Southeast Asia, bamboo rafts and reed boats, buoyant and flexible, allowed mariners to navigate shallow coral reefs. Archaeological finds, such as the 7000 BCE paddle fragments from Germany's Lake Constance, reveal a growing mastery of boat building, tailored to local waters. Navigating the open coast was no small feat. Unlike calm rivers, the sea brought unpredictable waves, sudden squalls, and shifting currents. Early mariners became keen observers, learning to read nature's cues. They watched seabirds, like gulls or terns, whose flight patterns signaled nearby land. They studied cloud formations, noting how cumulus clouds often gathered over islands. Tides and currents were memorized through experienced low tides exposed shellfish beds, while strong currents could carry a raft miles off course if ignored. In Scandinavia, sites like VEDBK reveal bone harpoons and fishhooks, evidence of communities that timed their voyages with seasonal fish migrations. These journeys demanded cooperation. A single canoe might carry a crew of 6, each with a role paddlers, a lookout scanning 4 reefs, and the leader steering by instinct and memory. Coastal camps, like those at Frothy Cave in Greece, show evidence of diverse diets: tuna, mussels, and even seal bones, suggesting regular voyages to offshore waters. These trips weren't just for food, they connected communities. Trade networks expanded, with shells from the North Sea found in inland Germany, and Baltic amber appearing in southern Europe. These exchanges fostered alliances, shared knowledge, and even sparked cultural traditions, like coastal burial sites, adorned with marine ornaments. The stakes were high. A misjudged tide could strand a crew, and a storm could splinter a canoe against rocks. Yet these risks forged resilience. A mariner returning with a haul of fish or a rare obsidian blade wasn't just a provider, but a storyteller, their tales of distant shores inspiring others. These coastal voyages, small in scale but vast in ambition, were the crucible where humans honed the skills that would one day carry them across oceans. In every paddle stroke, they charted a path toward a connected world. By around 8000 BCE, Mesolithic mariners had mastered the art of coastal navigation, but the call of the horizon was growing stronger. No longer satisfied with hugging familiar shores, these bold explorers began venturing into deeper waters, tackling open seas and distant islands. This chapter dives into the daring leaps that took humans beyond the safety of the coast, revealing the innovations, courage, and ingenuity that fueled these early offshore journeys. The boats of this era were becoming more ambitious. In Northern Europe, dugout canoes evolved into larger, more seaworthy vessels. Archaeological finds, like the 10-meter-long canoe from Tybrandt Vig in Denmark, dated to around 5300 BCE, show advanced craftsmanship. Hollowed logs, reinforced with wooden ribs and sealed with resin to withstand rougher seas. In Southeast Asia, evidence from sites like Dar but in Vietnam suggests mariners crafted outrigger rafts, stabilized with bamboo floats to handle ocean swells. These vessels, though still primitive, were built for longer voyages, carrying supplies like dried fish, water, and tools for repairs. Venturing into open water required new skills. Unlike coastal trips, where land was always in sight, offshore journeys meant navigating without landmarks. Mariners relied on natural cues, the sun's arc to track direction, the North Star's steady glow at night, and the flight paths of migratory birds pointing to distant land. Ocean currents and wave patterns became their maps. In the Mediterranean, sites like Frothy Cave revealed tuna bones, hinting at deep-sea fishing trips that demanded precise timing to follow fish schools far from shore. These voyages could last days, testing endurance and teamwork. The rewards were worth the risks. Offshore waters offered richer fishing grounds: cod, mackerel, and even whales in some regions. Islands, like those in the Aegean or off Australia's coast, held untapped resources: seabird eggs, seals, and rare materials like obsidian. Trade flourished as mariners connected distant communities. Excavations in Cyprus, occupied by 9000 BCE, show mainland pottery and tools, proof of sea crossings over 60 miles. These journeys weren't just about goods, they carried ideas, stories, and rituals, like shell necklaces found in burials far from their coastal origins. But the sea was unforgiving. Storms could whip up without warning, and a single miscalculation could strand a crew in open water. Success hinged on preparation, carrying extra paddles, bailing tools, and communal trust. A crew of 8, paddling in rhythm under a starry sky, wasn't just a team, they were a lifeline. Their return, laden with fish or exotic goods, sparked celebrations at camp. Their tales of the deep weaving new myths. These offshore ventures marked a turning point, proving humans could conquer the vast unknown, setting the stage for the epic ocean crossings to come. By 7000 BCE, the Mesolithic seas were no longer just a frontier, they were becoming a way of life. Coastal and island communities didn't just visit the water, they built their entire existence around it. From the stormy shores of northern Europe to the tropical waters of Southeast Asia, these early mariners transformed their relationship with the sea, creating vibrant maritime cultures. This chapter explores how seafaring shaped their daily lives, technologies, and connections, turning the ocean into a highway of survival and exchange. Boats were now central to existence. In Scandinavia, archaeological sites like Husibyklev reveal fleets of dugout canoes, some over 12 meters long, carved with precision and fitted with seats for coordinated rowing. These weren't just tools, but extensions of the community, painted with ochre or adorned with carved symbols. In the Pacific, early Austronesian groups crafted outrigger canoes with woven sails, as seen in artifacts from Vietnam's Bac Sun culture, allowing them to skim across coral reefs and open waters. These vessels carried entire families, their gear, and even livestock, supporting journeys that could last weeks. Daily life revolved around the sea's rhythms. Coastal settlements, like those at the Penskiver in Serbia, were built with sturdy wooden platforms facing the water, where fishers mended nets and carved bone harpoons. Diets were rich and varied. Excavations uncover piles of oyster shells, crab claws, and bones of deep-sea fish like cod, caught miles offshore. Women and children played key roles, gathering seaweed and shellfish during low tides, while men ventured farther for seals or porpoises. Seasonal migrations followed fish runs, with camps like those at Skateholm in Sweden showing evidence of summer fishing festivals. where communities feasted and traded. The sea also shaped culture and belief. Burial sites near coasts, like Tvik in France, contain graves adorned with shells and fishbone ornaments, suggesting spiritual ties to the ocean. Some communities carved fish or wave motifs into tools, perhaps honoring the sea's power. Trade networks grew stronger. Baltic amber reached Mediterranean shores, while obsidian from Melos appeared in Crete, carried by mariners who braved 100-mile crossings. These exchanges weren't just economic, they spread stories, songs, and rituals, like chants to calm stormy seas, binding distant groups into a shared maritime identity. Life at sea demanded resilience. Storms could wreck even the sturdiest canoe, and navigation relied on memory star patterns, wind shifts, and the calls of seabirds. Yet these challenges fostered unity. A crew returning with a haul of fish or rare shells was celebrated with fireside tales, their voyages becoming legends. These maritime cultures weren't just surviving, they were thriving, weaving the sea into their identity and paving the way for the great ocean migrations that would follow. As Mesolithic mariners ventured farther from shore around 6000 BCE, the need for reliable navigation grew urgent. Without maps or compasses, these early explorers turned to the heavens, harnessing the stars as their eternal guides. This chapter illuminates how ancient humans decoded the night sky, blending observation, memory, and intuition to traverse vast waters. From the Mediterranean's busy trade routes to Southeast Asia's island chains, the stars were a constant in an ever-changing sea. Mariners noticed patterns. The North Star, or Polaris, hovering steady in the northern sky, served as a fixed point for direction. In the southern hemisphere, constellations like the Southern Cross pointed south. Archaeological evidence from sites like Bekli Tepe in Turkey, though predating this era, hints at early sky-watching traditions that carried into seafaring. Oral knowledge passed down. A mariner might teach their child to align a canoe's bow with a rising star, ensuring a straight path across open water. But stars were just one tool in a vast kit. Winds and currents played starring roles. In the Mediterranean, traders learned the seasonal Etesian winds, blowing steadily from the north in summer, propelling obsidian-laden rafts from islands like Melos to mainland Greece. Currents, like the Canary Current off Africa's coast, were memorized through trial and error. Strong flows could speed a journey or drag a boat off course. Bird migrations offered clues. Flocks of sheer waters heading landward signaled nearby islands, invisible over the horizon. These techniques fueled expanding networks. In Southeast Asia, Austronesian peoples, precursors to later Polynesians, used star paths to hop between islands, as seen in artifacts from Taiwan's Changbin culture around 5000 BCE. Voyages spanning hundreds of miles carried pottery, tools, and even plants, fostering cultural exchanges. A crew under a starry canopy, paddling in silence, relied on a navigator's chant to recall star risings and settings, turning the sky into a living map. The risks of misreading the stars were grave. A cloudy night could leave mariners adrift. Yet success built legends. Returning traders shared tales of celestial guides, inspiring bolder journeys. These early navigation skills weren't mere survival hacks, they were the foundation of humanity's oceanic mastery, lighting the way for the epic explorations ahead. By 6000 BCE, the seas had become more than just routes for trade, they were conduits for ideas, beliefs, and identities. The maritime trade networks that carried obsidian, shells, and amber across vast waters also ferried stories, rituals, and innovations, blending cultures in ways that reshaped early human societies. Building on the bustling exchanges of goods explored in the last chapter, this chapter dives into how these voyages fostered cultural connections, creating shared identities among far-flung coastal communities. The boats that enabled trade were also vessels of cultural exchange. In the Mediterranean, mariners sailing from islands like Melos to mainland Greece didn't just bring obsidian, they carried pottery styles, as seen in the similar clay designs found across sites like Frankfurt Cave and Knossos. In northern Europe, Scandinavian canoes, like those at Tiber and Vig, bore carvings of fish and waves, mirroring motifs found in distant Baltic settlements. These shared symbols suggest that mariners swapped not just goods, but artistic ideas, perhaps during fireside gatherings at coastal camps. Language and stories traveled too. In Southeast Asia, early Austronesian voyages, navigating between islands like Taiwan and the Philippines, shared oral traditions, myths of sea spirits or heroic navigators, hinted at in later Polynesian tales, likely took root in these early crossings. Burial practices also spread. Coastal graves, like those at Tvik in France, were adorned with shells and fishbone ornaments, a custom mirrored in sites as far as Portugal, suggesting shared rituals carried by sea. These practices weren't just decorative, they tied communities to the ocean, shaping a maritime identity that revered the water's power. Technology transfer was another ripple effect. The outrigger canoe, perfected in Southeast Asia, appears in artifacts from Vietnam's Bac Sun culture and later spreads to Pacific islands, carried by mariners who taught each other to balance rafts with bamboo floats. In the Baltic, net-making techniques for fishing spread from Denmark to Sweden, as evidenced by similar mesh patterns in archaeological finds. These exchanges weren't one-way. A trader returning with new tools might share a story of a distant storm god, blending beliefs across shores. The impact was profound. Coastal communities, once isolated, began to share a maritime culture, songs of the sea, dances mimicking waves, and tools shaped by collective knowledge. A mariner landing on a foreign shore with a canoe full of amber wasn't just a trader, they were a cultural ambassador, their stories sparking new traditions. These exchanges laid the groundwork for the interconnected world of later seafaring peoples, proving that the sea didn't just connect places, it wove humanity together. As maritime trade and cultural exchange wove coastal communities together, by 6000 BCE, the sea became more than a source of food or a path for trade. It became a sacred force. The mariners who braved its waves began to see the ocean as a living entity, full of mystery and power. Building on the shared identities explored in the last chapter, this chapter delves into how early seafaring peoples crafted myths, rituals, and spiritual practices to honor the sea, embedding it into their beliefs and daily lives. The sea's vastness inspired awe and reverence. In northern Europe, coastal burials like those at Tvik in France, dated to around 5500 BCE, reveal bodies adorned with shells, fish bones, and seaweed, suggesting offerings to sea spirits. These graves, often facing the water, imply a belief that the deceased were bound to the ocean in the afterlife. Similar practices appear in Southeast Asia, where Austronesian sites like Naya Cave in Borneo contain shell, amulets, and fish-shaped carvings, hinting at myths of sea guardians or deities who guided mariners through storms. Rituals were woven into seafaring life. Before a voyage, crews might gather at the shore, as suggested by stone circles near Denmark's coast, possibly used for offerings. Charred fish bones and shell heaps at these sites point to ceremonies where food was shared with the sea, perhaps to ensure safe passage. In the Mediterranean, small clay figurines shaped like boats, found in caves near Crete, suggest votive offerings to appease the waves. These acts weren't mere superstition, they were a way to navigate the sea's unpredictability, giving mariners courage. Myths took shape from these rituals. Oral traditions, later echoed in Polynesian sagas, likely began here tales of heroic navigators battling sea monsters or guided by starborn deities. In Scandinavia, rock carvings from this period show boats with upturned prows, possibly symbolizing journeys to a spiritual realm. These stories, shared around campfires, weren't just entertainment, they taught navigation, reinforced community bonds, and honored the sea's dual nature as provider and peril. The spiritual connection to the sea also shaped technology. Canoes in northern Europe were sometimes painted with ochre or carved with wave motifs, as seen in finds from Sweden, possibly to invoke protection. In Southeast Asia, outrigger designs began incorporating stylized fish heads, suggesting a belief that the boat itself was a living ally. These practices spread through trade, as mariners exchanged not just goods, but sacred knowledge, creating a shared maritime spirituality. By embedding the sea in their myths and rituals, these communities transformed it from a daunting unknown into a partner in their survival. A mariner launching a canoe under a starry sky, whispering a chant to calm the waves, carried the hopes of their people. These spiritual ties to the sea set the stage for the epic voyages of later cultures, where the ocean became not just a path, but a sacred realm. By 5500 BCE, the sea was no longer just a sacred realm or a trade route. It was a challenge to be mastered through ingenuity. The spiritual reverence for the ocean, explored in the last chapter, drove Mesolithic mariners to refine their boats, turning them into sophisticated tools for longer, bolder voyages. This chapter uncovers how early humans engineered their vessels to conquer tougher waters, from stormy northern seas to the tropical expanses of Southeast Asia, laying the groundwork for the great oceanic migrations to come. Boat building became an art form. In northern Europe, dugout canoes evolved dramatically. Finds like the Hjortspring boat from Denmark, though slightly later at 3500 BCE, trace their roots to this period, showing long, narrow hulls carved from single oak trunks, reinforced with internal ribs for stability. These vessels, sometimes stretching 15 meters, could carry up to 20 paddlers and heavy cargo, designed to handle the Baltic's choppy waves. In Southeast Asia, Austronesian mariners perfected outrigger canoes, as seen in artifacts from Taiwan's Changbin culture. Bamboo outriggers and woven palm sails, buoyant yet sturdy, allowed them to navigate coral-strewn waters and open seas. These advancements weren't random. The sea's spiritual significance inspired careful craftsmanship. Canoes in Scandinavia were often painted with red ochre or carved with wave-like patterns, as seen in Swedish rock art, possibly to invoke divine protection. In the Pacific, outrigger designs incorporated fish head prows, suggesting boats were seen as living partners, blessed by sea spirits. These weren't just aesthetic touches, they reflected a deep understanding of materials: oak for strength, bamboo for flexibility, and resin seals to keep water out. Building these boats required community effort. A single dugout could take weeks to carve, with entire villages felling trees, shaping hulls with flint adzes, and weaving sails from reeds. Sites like Lepenskiver in Serbia show evidence of communal workshops near rivers, where tools and wood shavings littered the ground. This cooperation extended to voyages. Crews of paddlers, navigators, and lookouts worked in sync, their roles honed through rituals and shared stories of the sea. The impact was transformative. These advanced boats enabled longer journeys, connecting distant lands. In the Mediterranean, mariners reached islands like Cyprus, 60 miles from the mainland, by 6000 BCE, carrying obsidian and pottery, as found in Etakremnos. In Southeast Asia, voyages between Indonesia and New Guinea spread crops like taro, hinting at early agricultural exchange. These trips weren't just practical, they were acts of ambition, driven by a belief that the sea, though sacred, could be tamed. The risks remained high. Leaky hulls or rogue waves could doom a crew. Yet each successful voyage fueled confidence. A mariner returning with a canoe laden with exotic goods or tales of new islands wasn't just a traveler, they were a pioneer. Their craft a testament to human ingenuity. These boats of ambition carried Mesolithic peoples toward a future where the ocean's vastness would become their playground. By 5500 BCE, the sophisticated boats crafted by Mesolithic mariners, as explored in the last chapter, were more than tools for trade or fishing. They were vessels of discovery, carrying humans to uncharted islands. The warming seas of the post-Ice Age world had sculpted new archipelagos and distant shores, tempting adventurous groups to seek new homes. This chapter uncovers the bold first steps of island colonization, from the Mediterranean to the edges of the Pacific, and how these journeys reshaped human history. The boats that made this possible were marvels of their time. In northern Europe, Long dugout canoes, like those inspired by finds at Hjort Spring in Denmark, could carry entire families, their tools, and supplies across choppy waters. In Southeast Asia, Austronesian outrigger canoes, with bamboo floats and woven sails, were agile enough to navigate treacherous reefs. Archaeological evidence from sites like Taiwan's Changbin culture shows these vessels, often adorned with fish motifs, were built for endurance, carrying crews on voyages that could span hundreds of miles. Colonizing islands required more than sturdy boats, it demanded courage and planning. In the Mediterranean, mariners reached Cyprus by 6000 BCE, as seen in the Etikrimnos site, where settlers brought pigs and tools from the mainland, a 60-mile journey across open sea. These pioneers weren't just explorers, they were settlers, establishing camps with stone hearths and fishbone middens. In Southeast Asia, early Austronesians ventured from Indonesia to New Guinea, carrying taro and other crops, as evidenced by plant remains dated to 5000 BCE. These voyages often followed bird migrations or ocean currents, learned through generations of navigation. Life on these new islands was both a challenge and a reward. Settlers faced unfamiliar ecosystems, rocky Mediterranean isles with sparse game, or lush Pacific islands teeming with fish were prone to storms. Excavations at Cyprus Shilarokumbos reveal early pens for goats, showing how colonists adapted mainland farming to island life. Coastal middens, piled with shells and fish bones, highlight reliance on the sea, while tools like obsidian blades, traded from distant islands, show connections to broader networks. These colonizations forged new identities. Settlers developed distinct traditions, like the shell-inlaid pottery of early Pacific islands or the stone figurines of Cycladic cultures in the Aegean. Yet they stayed linked to their origins. Trade goods, like Baltic amber found in Mediterranean sites, prove ongoing contact. A family landing on a new shore, planting crops or building shelters, wasn't just surviving, they were creating a legacy. These island outposts became stepping stones for later migrations, as mariners pushed farther, driven by the promise of new horizons. The risks were immense. Storms, starvation, or isolation could end a venture, but success bred resilience. A canoe reaching a new island, its crew greeted by untouched beaches, marked a triumph of human spirit. These first colonizations, born from the boats of ambition, set the stage for the vast oceanic expansions that would follow, proving that no island was too far for humanity's reach. By 5000 BCE, the first island colonizations, as detailed in the last chapter, had taken hold, transforming isolated outposts into vibrant, self-sustaining societies. These early settlers, armed with their outrigger canoes and dugouts, adapted to the unique challenges of island life, from limited resources to volcanic terrains. This chapter examines how these communities built enduring homes on the wave's edge, fostering agriculture, social structures, and innovations that would propel them toward even greater oceanic feats. The boats that brought them were now lifelines for island living. In the Mediterranean, Cypriot settlers used their mainland-inspired vessels to ferry goods between islands, evolving them with added sails for quicker hops. In Southeast Asia, Austronesian outriggers, like those from Indonesia's early sites, became multi-purpose, fishing by day, trading by night. Archaeological digs at Shilarokumbos in Cyprus reveal boat sheds near shores, where hulls were repaired with local resins, ensuring constant readiness for sea voyages. Adapting to island environments was key. On rocky Mediterranean isles like Malta, colonists terraced hills for farming, planting barley and lentils brought from the mainland, as seen in seed remains dated to 5000 BCE. In the Pacific fringes, early settlers in New Guinea cultivated taro and yams in wetland gardens, their canoes transporting seedlings across lagoons. Coastal villages grew, with homes built from palm thatch and coral, like those at Burua in Fiji, hinting at later Polynesian styles. These societies balanced sea and land fishing for protein, farming for staples, creating diverse diets evidenced by middens full of shells, fish bones, and crop husks. Social structures emerged from necessity. Island life demanded cooperation. Families formed clans, sharing boats and knowledge. In Cyprus, communal storage pits suggest shared harvests, while burial sites with shell jewelry indicate emerging hierarchies. In Southeast Asia, oral traditions, preserved in later myths, likely began here. Stories of founding voyages that reinforced community bonds. Trade kept them connected. Obsidian from Melanesia reached distant atolls, exchanged for pottery or feathers, as found in Lapita, culture precursors. Innovation thrived in isolation. Islanders refined navigation, using swell patterns unique to each archipelago, and developed tools like fish traps woven from vines. Rituals honored their watery origins. Shoreline altars with offerings of fish, perhaps to ensure bountiful seas. A village elder teaching young paddlers the stars paths wasn't just training, it was preserving a legacy. These island societies, rooted in the waves, weren't static, they were dynamic, their resilience turning remote spaces into cradles of culture. The challenges, droughts, tsunamis, or overfishing tested them, but adaptation prevailed. A canoe fleet returning with traded goods sparked feasts, weaving stronger ties. These building blocks of island life set the foundation for the Polynesian expansion, where societies born from the sea would venture into the vast Pacific unknown. By 1000 BCE, the thriving island societies of Southeast Asia and the Pacific fringes, as built in the last chapter, were ready to stretch their horizons further. What began as local adaptations blossomed into one of history's greatest maritime feats, the Polynesian expansion. These daring navigators, descendants of the Austronesian peoples, set out to colonize the vast, empty expanse of the Pacific Ocean, settling islands thousands of miles apart. This chapter explores the origins of this epic migration, the innovative vessels that made it possible, and the cultural forces that drove them into the unknown. The heart of this expansion lay the double-hulled canoe, a revolutionary design that evolved from earlier outriggers, known as vaka or waka in Polynesian languages. These catamaran-like vessels featured two parallel hulls connected by a platform, providing stability for open ocean voyages. Archaeological evidence from sites like Borua in Fiji, dated to around 1200 BCE, shows precursors to these canoes. Long, slender hulls lashed with coconut fiber, fitted with crab claw cells woven from pandanus leaves. These boats could span 20 meters, carrying up to 50 people, their belongings, livestock like pigs and chickens, and plants such as taro and breadfruit for new settlements. What propelled this expansion? A mix of population growth, resource pressures, and an innate wanderlust rooted in their maritime heritage. In islands like Taiwan and the Philippines, where Austronesians originated around 3000 BCE, communities outgrew their lands, prompting younger generations to seek new homes. Oral traditions, later recorded in Polynesian myths, speak of chiefs commanding voyages to fulfill prophecies or escape conflicts. Navigation skills, honed over millennia, became legendary. Wayfinders used stars, ocean swells, and bird flights to chart courses without instruments. The first waves targeted nearby archipelagos. From Indonesia, mariners reached Fiji and Tonga by 1000 BCE, as evidenced by Lapita pottery, a distinctive red slip ceramic style decorated with geometric patterns, found across these islands. These settlers established villages with thatched houses on stilts, cultivating gardens and fishing reefs. Trade networks followed, exchanging obsidian from New Britain with shells from Samoa, strengthening ties across the growing Polynesian world. Cultural markers emerged, binding these far-flung groups. Tattoos, intricate designs inked with bone combs, symbolize status and ancestry, as seen in early artifacts from Samoa. Oral myths, chanted during voyages, preserved knowledge tales of Maui the trickster hauling islands from the sea. Inspired bravery. Rituals honored ocean gods like Tongaroa, with offerings cast into waves before departures. A wayfinder at the helm, reading the stars as his canoe sliced through swells, embodied this culture of exploration. Challenges abounded: vast distances, cyclones, and the risk of drifting off course. Yet each successful landing, like the first footprints on a pristine beach, fueled the momentum. These early Polynesians weren't just migrants, they were architects of an oceanic empire. Their double-hulled canoes carrying the seeds of a civilization that would span a third of the globe. This dawn of expansion set the course for the remote conquests ahead, where the Pacific's farthest islands awaited. By 1000 BCE, the Polynesian expansion, sparked by the daring migrations explored in the last chapter, was transforming the Pacific into a network of inhabited islands. Central to this feat was the unparalleled skill of wayfinding, navigating vast oceans without maps or compasses, using only the natural world as a guide. This chapter dives into how Polynesian navigators mastered the art of reading stars, swells, and wildlife, turning the boundless sea into a familiar path that led them to distant shores like never before. Polynesian wayfinders were the masterminds of their voyages, trained from childhood to interpret the ocean's subtle cues. Their primary map was the night sky, a celestial canvas of constellations. The star path, or Kavika, guided them. Stars like Sirius or the Pleiades rose at predictable points, marking east or west. Archaeological evidence doesn't preserve star charts, but oral traditions, later recorded in Hawaiian and Maori chants, describe navigators memorizing dozens of stars, their arcs memorized through rhythmic songs. A wayfinder, standing at the helm of a double-hulled canoe, could steer toward Fiji by aligning with a rising star, even after days at sea. The ocean itself was a second guide. Polynesians studied wave patterns. Swells bent by distant islands created unique ripples, detectable by a skilled navigator's touch on the canoe's hull. Reflected waves, bouncing off unseen land, signaled a destination miles away. In the Caroline Islands, navigators used stick charts made of shells and twigs, though likely later, to teach swell patterns, a practice rooted in this era's knowledge. Seabirds, like frigate birds soaring high, pointed to land within a day's sail, while clouds piling over islands betrayed their presence long before they appeared. These skills enabled incredible journeys. From Tonga and Samoa, Polynesians reached the Marquesas Islands, over 2,000 miles away, by 500 BCE, as shown by lapita pottery shards found in sandy atolls. Their canoes, up to 25 meters long with platforms for families and crops, were marvels of balance, as seen in reconstructions from Fiji's Burua site. Voyages could last weeks, requiring precise timing, sailing in calm seasons, avoiding cyclones. Navigators carried mental maps, passed down through generations, of star paths and currents linking islands. Wayfinding was also cultural. Training was a rite of passage, with young navigators learning under elders during coastal trips, chanting star sequences by firelight. Rituals preceded voyages. Offerings to ocean gods like Tongaroa ensured protection. A successful crossing, landing on a new island's beach, wasn't just a triumph of skill, but a sacred act, celebrated with feasts and stories. These navigators weren't just explorers, they were keepers of a living tradition, their knowledge tying scattered islands into a Polynesian world. The risks were daunting. Misreading a swell or a cloudy night could spell disaster, yet the wayfinder's precision turned the Pacific into a highway. A canoe slicing through waves, guided by a navigator's steady gaze at the stars, carried not just people, but a legacy of mastery that would reach the farthest corners of the ocean. By 500 BCE, the Polynesian navigators, whose wayfinding mastery we explored last, had woven a vast web of settlements across the Pacific, from Fiji to the Marquesas. These islands, once barren spakes in the ocean, now thrived with vibrant societies. This chapter delves into how Polynesians transformed their new homes into flourishing communities, blending tradition with adaptation to create a rich cultural tapestry that defined their world. Villages sprang up along coral-fringed coasts, their thatched houses raised on stilts to catch cooling breezes. Archaeological sites, like those in Samoa's Upolu, reveal circular stone foundations and remnants of toro terraces, evidence of organized settlements. By 700 BCE, Families cultivated gardens of breadfruit, yams, and bananas, while fishing nets hauled in reef fish to feed growing populations. Pigs and chickens, carried on canoes, roamed pens, their presence a testament to the foresight of those early voyages. Social structures took shape, rooted in kinship and leadership. Chiefs, or alii in Hawaiian, wielded authority through lineage and charisma, often tracing descent to mythic ancestors like Maui. Excavations in Tonga uncover Langi tombs for elite families hinting at stratified societies by 500 BCE. Yet, community bound these groups. Communal feasts, with earth ovens steaming with taro and fish, fostered unity. Oral traditions, chanted by firelight, preserved histories of voyages and gods, ensuring no island felt isolated. Art and spirituality flourished. Intricate tattoos, etched with bone combs, marked rites of passage and status, as seen in Samoan artifacts. Barcloth, pounded from mulberry trees, became clothing and sacred tapestries, dyed with vibrant plant hues. Rituals honored deities like Tongaroa, with offerings of shells and fish cast into lagoons. In the Marquesas, early stone tiki statues, carved with angular faces, guarded sacred sites, their weathered features still visible in archaeological digs. Trade wove these societies together. Obsidian from New Britain, prized for tools, reached Samoa by 600 BCE, while pearl shells from the Tuamotus adorned Tongan chiefs. Canoes, now refined with lashed planks and double sails, shuttled goods and stories across thousands of miles. These networks weren't just economic, they carried songs, dances, and myths, creating a shared Polynesian identity across the vast Pacific. Challenges persisted, storms battered crops, and rivalries sparked conflicts. Yet, each village, with its swaying palms and glowing hearths, was a triumph of resilience. The Polynesians didn't just settle islands, they built a civilization, their culture a vibrant thread, stitching the ocean's farthest reaches. This foundation would propel them toward even bolder horizons, as new lands beckoned. By 300 BCE, the Polynesian societies thriving on islands like Samoa and the Marquesas were ready to push beyond their horizons. The wayfinders' skills and the robust double-hulled canoes, refined over centuries, enabled voyages to the Pacific's most remote corners: Hawaii, Rapa Nui, and Aotearoa. This chapter explores these daring expeditions, the challenges of colonizing distant lands, and the legacy of those who ventured into the unknown. The journey to Hawaii, over 2,500 miles from the Marquesas, was a feat of endurance. Archaeological evidence from Oa's Bellows Beach, dated to 300 BCE, shows early settlements with fishhooks and adzes, proof of Polynesian arrival. These voyages required meticulous planning. Canoes, now up to 30 meters long, carried families, crops, and livestock, lashed tight against pounding waves. Wayfinders navigated by the North Star and seasonal winds, timing departures to avoid typhoons. Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, lay even farther 2,000 miles east of the Marquesas. Pottery fragments and obsidian tools, dated to 200 BCE, mark its settlement. The island's isolation demanded self-sufficiency. Settlers planted taro in volcanic soil and fished its treacherous coasts. Aotearoa, New Zealand, reached by 100 CE, was colder and vaster, its forests and rivers a stark contrast to tropical atolls. Moa bones and charcoal pits from early Maori sites reveal a people adapting to new climates. Their canoes beached on rugged shores. These voyages were perilous. Storms could capsize even the sturdiest vaka, and misreading a star path meant drifting into oblivion. Yet, wayfinders' precision honed by generations of training turned the impossible into reality. Oral chants, later recorded in Maori traditions, describe navigators like Cube, who followed seabirds to Aotearoa's shores. Each landing was a miracle, celebrated with fires and offerings to gods, marking a new chapter in the Polynesian saga. Cultural adaptations followed. In Hawaii, heiau temples of stacked lava stones honored local deities. On Rapa Nui, the first moai statues began to rise, carved to honor ancestors. In Aotearoa, Maori wove cloaks from flax, adapting to cooler winds. These far-flung colonies, though distinct, shared the same spirit. Tattoos, myths, and the rhythm of the ocean bound them to their Polynesian roots. The Polynesians had conquered the Pacific's farthest reaches, their canoes carving paths where none existed. But their story wasn't just about exploration, it was about creating a legacy that would endure, as their descendants shaped these islands into enduring homes. As Polynesians settled the Pacific's remotest islands by 100 CE, their survival hinged on mastering diverse environments, from Hawaii's lush valleys to Rapa Nui's windswept plains and Aotearoa's rugged forests. This chapter uncovers how these settlers transformed alien landscapes into sustainable homes, blending innovation with ancestral knowledge to thrive in the world's most isolated places. In Hawaii, settlers carved terraces into volcanic slopes, irrigating them with streams to grow taro, a staple crop brought on canoes. Archaeological digs at Halawa Valley reveal stone-lined channels from 100 CE, showing sophisticated water management. Breadfruit groves and fish ponds, built with coral walls, fed growing villages. In Rapa Nui, where soil was thin, Polynesians dug lithic mulch gardens, mixing rocks with compost to nurture sweet potatoes, as evidenced by remnants near Ahuvainapu. Aotearoa posed unique challenges. Its colder climate demanded new strategies. Maori burned forests to clear land for yams, leaving charcoal layers dated to 200 CE. They hunted moa, giant flightless birds, to supplement fish-heavy diets, with bone middens found in South Island sites. Flax, abundant in wetlands, was woven into nets and clothing, replacing tropical barcloth. These adaptations weren't just practical, they reshaped ecosystems, a legacy still visible in New Zealand's altered landscapes. Resourcefulness defined Polynesian ingenuity. In the Marquesas, where timber was scarce, settlers recycled canoe planks into house frames, as seen in Haine Valley ruins. Across islands, they crafted tools from local materials, basalt adzes in Hawaii, obsidian blades in Rapa Nui. Trade persisted, with Hawaiian basalt reaching Tahiti by 300 CE, carried by canoes that doubled as cargo vessels. These networks ensured no island stood alone. Yet, challenges loomed. Over-farming risked soil depletion, as seen in Rapa Nui's later erosion. Overhunting in Aotearoa led to extinction, forcing dietary shifts. Still, Polynesians adapted, replanting crops and refining techniques. Rituals tied them to the land offerings to Lono, the Hawaiian harvest god. Blessed fields, each terrace, fish pond, or woven map was a testament to their resilience, turning barren islands into vibrant homes. This mastery of environments wasn't just survival, it was a blueprint for a sustainable Polynesian world, setting the stage for a culture that would echo across centuries. By 500 CE, the Polynesian world stretched from Hawaii's northern shores to Aotearoa's southern cliffs, a civilization bound not by empires, but by the sea. The navigators, settlers, and innovators of earlier chapters had created a network of islands united by culture, trade, and shared heritage. This chapter explores how this interconnected Polynesian world solidified, leaving a legacy of unity and resilience that endures today. Trade networks flourished, linking distant islands. Hawaiian feather cloaks, dyed crimson and yellow, were exchanged for Tahitian pearls, as archaeological finds in both regions confirm. Canoes, now masterpieces of craftsmanship with carved prows, carried goods and emissaries across thousands of miles. In Tonga, a hub by 400 CE, markets bustled with obsidian, shells, and woven mats, as excavated trade caches reveal. These routes weren't just for goods, they carried ideas, songs, and dances, weaving a cultural fabric across the Pacific. Social bonds grew through intermarriage and alliances. Chiefs from Samoa married into Marquesan families, their unions sealing trade pacts. As oral histories recount, festivals, like Hawaii Makahiki, brought communities together with games, chants, and feasts, reinforcing shared identity. Tattoo patterns, once local, Spread across islands, Samoan P designs echoed in Morimoko, a visual language of ancestry etched in skin. Spirituality unified this world. Temples, or Maori, dotted islands from Rapa Nui to Aotearoa, their stone platforms hosting rituals for gods like Tongaroa and Tone. Myths of Maui, the trickster who snared the sun, were chanted in every dialect, binding distant peoples. Navigators, revered as living legends, trained apprentices in sacred schools, ensuring wayfinding's secrets endured. Excavations of Maori and Raiatea, dated to 500 CE, show offerings of coral and fish, signs of devotion to the ocean that connected them. Challenges tested this unity, rivalries flared, and storms disrupted trade. Yet, the Polynesian shared heritage held firm. A canoe landing in a new harbor, its crew greeted with chants and garlands, symbolized this bond. Their world was a tapestry, each island a thread, woven by the courage and ingenuity of those who sailed the stars. This legacy would ripple forward, shaping the Pacific for millennia. The Polynesian expansion, born from the daring voyages of wayfinders and the resilience of settlers, transformed the Pacific into a vibrant world of connected islands. From the double-hulled canoes, slicing through waves, to the Maori echoing with chants, this epic saga spanning Taiwan to Aotearoa stands as one of humanity's greatest achievements. This conclusion reflects on the Polynesians' enduring legacy and its lessons for today. Their triumph was not just in crossing oceans, but in building a civilization. They turned barren atolls into thriving villages. Their toro terraces and fish ponds a testament to ingenuity. Wayfinders, reading stars and swells, charted paths where none existed, their knowledge preserved in songs that still echo in Hawaiian and Maori traditions. Art, from tattoos to moe, carried their stories, while trade and rituals wove islands into a single Polynesian tapestry. This legacy lives on. Modern Polynesian voyages, like those aboard the Hukli, retrace ancient roots, using traditional wayfinding, proving the timelessness of their ancestors' skills. Cultural festivals, from Samoa to Rapa Nui, celebrate shared heritage with dances and chants. The Pacific, once a barrier, remains a highway for those who inherit this spirit of exploration. The Polynesians teach us resilience and connection. In a world often divided, their story reminds us that courage, ingenuity, and shared purpose can bridge even the vastest distances. As a canoe glides toward a new horizon, its sails catching the wind, it carries the eternal spirit of a people who made the ocean their home and the world their legacy.